He didn't even own a rake. Rain drizzled softly from a gray October sky as John Carter stood on his porch, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of a faded hoodie. His 2 kids, Ellie and Mason, were inside, likely trying to warm their fingers over the stove again since the heater had stopped working last week. Rent was due in 4 days, the fridge held little more than mustard and a carton of eggs, and the job interview he'd hoped would change everything had ended with a polite, "We'll call you." As he stared at the neglected front yard across the street, he saw her again, Mrs. Ellington, the old woman with the silver hair and wide-brimmed sun hats. She was bent over, struggling to lift a branch half her weight, her breath visible in the cold air. Her yard looked like a storm had camped out and thrown a tantrum. Fallen limbs, soggy leaves, and overgrown weeds claimed every inch of her lawn. John had noticed her a few times before. Always alone. Always moving slow. He'd waved once or twice, and she had smiled, but they'd never spoken. Today, something tugged at him. Maybe it was the aching in his own bones from doing nothing, or maybe it was Ellie's innocent voice earlier that morning asking, "Daddy, why don't people help each other more?" Without thinking, he grabbed the one good pair of gloves he owned, kissed his kids, and crossed the street. "Need a hand?" he asked, walking up with hesitant steps. Mrs. Ellington looked up, startled, then softened. "You don't have to." "I know," John said simply. "But I want to." They spent 3 hours together, bundled in scarves and silence, clearing her yard. She offered stories between rakes, how her late husband had planted every tree in the yard, how she once played violin with a symphony in her youth, how the quiet of the neighborhood was both a comfort and a curse now. John listened more than he spoke, pausing now and then to stretch his aching back. He didn't tell her about the eviction notice tucked in his drawer or the nights he'd skipped meals so his kids wouldn't have to. At the end of it all, Mrs. Ellington poured them both a cup of warm cider. "You've got good hands," she said softly. "Not just strong, but kind." John gave a tired smile. "I just did what anyone would've." "No," she said. "Most don't." They parted ways with nothing more than a nod, and John returned home with sore muscles and the faint warmth of human connection. He didn't think anything more of it, until 2 days later. A sleek black car pulled up in front of his house. A sharply dressed woman stepped out, clipboard in hand, and asked for him by name. "I'm with Ellington Estate Management," she said. "Mrs. Ellington asked me to deliver this." She handed him an envelope, heavy and sealed in wax. Inside was a handwritten letter that began, "Dear John, when you offered your help without expecting anything, you reminded me of the world I once believed in. My late husband and I built our life on kindness and service, and we always said, the best investment is in people." Then came the shock. She had left him a gift, a trust fund with enough to cover a year's rent, a new car, and the seed money to start a landscaping business. "You saw the mess in my yard," she wrote, "but you still saw me. Now I see you. And I believe in you." Tears welled in John's eyes as he read it again, gripping the letter like a lifeline. For the first time in months, the weight on his chest lifted. Not just because of the money, but because someone had noticed. In the weeks that followed, John launched Carter's Care Landscaping. He hired 2 friends who'd also been out of work. The business grew, and so did his confidence. He started waking up with purpose. He could buy Ellie a real coat. He didn't have to say, "Maybe next week," when Mason asked for ice cream. But more than that, he began offering something else to his clients, something money couldn't measure. A listening ear. A helping hand. A reminder that kindness, freely given, often finds its way back home. And every time someone asked how he got started, he'd smile and say, "It began with a rake, an old woman, and a yard full of leaves." Moral of the story. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness unlocks the greatest doors. In a world full of storms, be someone's calm, and you might just find your own light in the process.